listening to Superpower Creatives on the Superpower Up podcast. The show that sparks the superpowers of musicians and artists to ignite change.
All the little men, will they get the chance to come back?
Hello, this is David Delmar, your host of Superpower Creatives, and you're listening to our episode, Conscious Evolution of True Self. I believe everyone is a creator, and it's this inherent birthright that's the source of our superpowers. Stepping into this personal authority is scary, though. This show celebrates creatives that stay true to who they really are, making a living using their creative superpowers. The stories they share will excite and inspire listeners to do the same, making positive change in the world. It's my extreme pleasure to introduce our guest for today's show. He's someone who just amazes me, and I am very excited to have a conversation with. Rene Rafael is equal parts inspirational speaker and multimedia performance artist, and his keynote performances combine these personas to ignite hope, purpose, and possibility in an unignorable, introspective style. In his quest, he's inspiring the more humble types to become bold in making decisions, especially when fear is trying to stay in the way, so they can become compassionate communicators who empower themselves and everyone in their path. Rene's deeply personal and vulnerable sharing of his mental health battles, relived through his multimedia performative stories, uniquely engages audiences through emotive honesty and real-life experiences. His message captivates eyes, ears, and hearts because it is so raw, borderline confrontational, and yet approachable because of its vulnerability, volume, and depth to which Rene marries his message with his art. He interweaves narrative with original music videos to embody the experience, get deeply connected to his audience, and create a conversation that leaves a lasting impact beyond just the mental. Rene, hello, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Wow. Oh my God, David, this is so awesome to be here with you, buddy. And I love the way you whispered some of the key words there. It just sounded very cinematic. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. You're very welcome, of course.
Yeah.
Well, Rene, thank you so much for being here, and more so for everything you're doing as a mental health advocate and as an innovator who uses his creativity to convey a message of hope, triumph, and inspiring others to start standing up to fear.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today we're talking about our show, Conscious Evolution of True Self, and in particular, how Rene evolves out loud with his riveting performances as his own true self. So Rene, as we always like to start our shows with probably the obvious, but here it is. First question. What is your creative superpower?
So I try not to cheat because, you sent me the questions and I thought about, well, maybe.
At least I could do.
Yeah,
At least I could do.
Right. And I thought maybe I'll look them over, maybe I won't, but I looked them over and I try to just not think about it too much so I can keep it real. But I tell you, the other, I don't know if it's a couple weeks now, I wrote something down that just a couple of lyrics, might have been 4 sentences, and I just thought that might be the easiest way to answer that. It was unrelated to this interview, but it just kind of reminded me it might be a good thing. And I say, I'm not a connoisseur of what's there. I'm a creator of what's not. My eye creates the spark it wants to see. And yeah, my superpower is I'm an idiot when I come up with these visuals, man. Ever since I was a little kid, I've had these really strange combinations of musical imagery and just explosive generative power that I want to see outside my head. And when I get to deciding on something that I really want to see like that, I'll spend years making that happen, finding out all the different things that I'm not interested in trying to tackle, and they're not interesting in and of themselves. But if they're going to help me make that visual possible outside of my head, I will force myself to learn all the things I don't care about. So tenacity is my superpower, man.
Tenacity. I love that. And I mean, I think for the true artist, and it doesn't have to be the old narrative of a struggling artist, but the narrative of sacrificing whatever it takes for your art and having the patience of the long game, because your art is you. That's your true self. And I love what you're sharing, because your story and what you just shared in those little bits of sort of revealing that side of yourself is just that, the real life part of what you do for your creativity. And I just think that's so powerful, Rene.
Yeah, man, it's fun. It's fun when you can do it, and then when it's appreciated too. When you got encouragement, you're around people that will keep you going, because it's obviously not easy to do these things on our own, especially when you're surrounded with the opposite often in the workplace and in the family sometimes, and even a lot of your friends who may not see what you see. It's good to be around those who do.
I mean, there's nothing like having a support system of people that may not understand, what your experience is as a, creative, as an artist, but at the same time, they support and honor, what that is, like I'm thinking of our family and whatnot, but also to have, those close friends who actually are artists, to be able to give that support is a big deal. And it matters a whole lot. And I hear you saying for you, that's been pretty important throughout the years, as you've, continued to get your art out of your head and however long it's taken to get that out into the world.
Yeah. And just the last couple of years, even more so, I've been surrounding myself more and more with people who are like that. And that was part of the fear, was just not valuing enough what I had valued as a little kid, not spending all these years as an adult, not valuing that, and being afraid to look for those who did value it, because the pool of people who did seemed a lot smaller until a few years back when I joined a mastermind that you did as well with Tiamo de Vittori, and it's been a crazy whirlwind since then, man. Since, what was it? Was it February 2017 or March?
Yeah. It that sounds pretty right on to me, brother.
Yeah, it's been intense. There's been a lot of growth, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of tears, but a lot of realizing that the tears were worthwhile and that others were doing similarly. So, as crazy as you may think of yourself, you're in good company when you surround yourself with that.
I mean, it makes all the difference. I know, personally speaking, it has for me, and certainly you have been somebody who's been also, for me, somebody that's inspirational and helped to empower me. And so I'll always be grateful for that, Rene, because you're the real McCoy, and I value people who are like that, and especially when they're artists, because I do recognize what sacrifice it takes for your art. But well, let me ask you this, Rene. I mean, there's so many things, you've mentioned a bit as far as these visuals you've had as a kid, and this sort of explosive power to see your visions outside of your head, however long it takes to do that. Why do you do what you do with your superpower of perseverance?
It feels so good. I mean,
it does.
Bottom line is, it just feels so good. But I'll try to let me describe, I guess, what I'm doing when I'm not really doing that. And what I mean by that is, I'm lying in bed. It's time to go to sleep and I can't. I've got work the next day, or I've got whatever happening the next day, but I've got a mind that won't shut down. And I'm lying in bed just imagining what it is that I'm eventually going to be doing, whether that's a music video, whether that's on stage, whether that's just writing a new song, or combining all of that stuff. I imagine for many, many months, sometimes years, not necessarily saying that I don't put action into that, but I will constantly be reimagining all these things that then fit together and finding all the different ways in which it might break. Because my performances tend to include a lot of technology.
They do. It's amazing, dude. It's so cool. It's really cool. You got to see it, folks. I mean, it's awesome what he does. It's really something brilliant.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the kudos. But it's like I'm trying to get out of technology at the same time because I've been a technologist for so long, and I've just been behind a computer, solving the same problem over and over again, writing the same software, but in a different language because the industry is so fragmented and so saturated with, just commoditized stuff and just reselling the same widgets and whatever. And so it's ironic that I'm trying to do a lot of stuff with technology, but just the kind of technology that allows me to elevate my art. So roundabout answer to your question, I spend a lot of time in the think tank before it actually ever materializes. And when I finally do materialize that on stage, all those pins and needles that I felt on my back as I was lying, goose pimples, lying in bed, imagining this stuff for years, all of a sudden gets magnified like tenfold. I'm on stage, I'm like, oh my God, all this stuff is happening either as I saw it or, oops, no, there's a million things that went wrong, but now all of a sudden there's these really cool opportunities that I can just really quickly adapt to and create moments that I was never even expecting. And oh my God, I caught the stuff on camera too. I got all these 3 or 4 angles in the crowd. I can't wait till I get home and I'll put all these things together and get a multi-camera angle version of this. I want to see what this looks like from the audience's perspective. I get, oh my God, it's such a different world when you're seeing it not from your own point of view,
Absolutely. I mean, that is awesome stuff. Well, we need to take a quick break. I really want to expand on some of that, what you were just sharing, and help people to discover how they can start to apply the perseverance that you describe into their own lives, and to maybe bring their creativity that they, left a long time ago in their life and let that come back into the forefront for them. But before we do jump into the break, let's tell people where they can find out more about you, Rene.
Oh, thank you, David. Yeah, it's ReneRafael.com. So it's REN as in Nancy, RAFAEL.com.
Awesome. Well, check that out, folks. Fantastic. All right. So we've been talking to Rene Rafael, and we have been discussing how he is evolving his consciousness into his true self. And he has shared some pretty riveting stuff about that. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to sort of walk through how Rene creates his art, but also how he balances life at work and life as a creative, and how that balancing act really works for him, and how maybe it's a challenge for him. So stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
We're back. You're listening to Superpower Creatives, and today we're talking with Rene Rafael, and the things we're talking about is how Rene has consciously evolved into his true self, and how he does this on stage, which makes him one of the most original performers and artists that I've ever seen. And that is something that is pretty amazing, to have such creativity on that level. And Rene, I want to pick back up a little bit where we left off before the break. You mentioned it feels so good. I think where we left off is where you were on stage, and I had mentioned there's the things that you saw in your head, but then there's all these things that you didn't anticipate. And what's that experience like for you as a creative when you see your art, you're out performing your art, and then you're on stage in the middle of all that magic? And what is it for you when the things, those million things that happen that you didn't anticipate? What's that like what's it like for you to have that sort of realization experience?
So mostly on the focus on what does it feel like when the things go wrong? Is it that?
Yeah. How up on stage there? Because I've seen you perform, and you don't show anything's wrong. How do you handle that? I think our listeners would value to hear how you handle that, because on stage you could never tell. You're so captivating, and it's right there. So we would never know.
All right, that's amazing, and it still amazes me when I hear people say that they never know that I was freaking out, because inside I am a lot. Not all the times, but many times I am, and it really just depends on what's going on. Like one of the last ones that you and I were at together, where we had a couple of technical difficulties. I had just had a flight out to LA that was really long, had a lot of problems, had missed a flight before getting on the flight, had some really difficult challenges at my 9 to 5 with deadlines that were happening pretty much to the day that I was flying out to do this show. And so all this stress, lack of sleep, and everything was going on. And I find that happens often as a show is coming up, which it's amazing just thinking about how these things seem to get in the way to try to prevent something from being otherwise awesome. But all that being said, I've had a lot of stress in my life from many different perspectives. The drugs were one of them. I mean, that's the most obvious, the 26 years on that stuff.
The prescription drugs.
Yep. Not recreational, folks. Bring that up. Yep.
Sure.
Yep. And between that and all the different ways I had to adapt because of being on these medications, I don't know a comfort zone. And I don't think that's too helpful for the audience in one way, because, and I guess I'm saying I'm able to be more relaxed on stage because all I know in my life is stress. So that's not really a helpful thing just yet. But what I can say that might be more helpful is what stress has taught me is to seek it. And I haven't always sought it. So that's not 100% me. But as I learned to seek it more, because it was happening regardless, the more
kind of turn into the stress.
Yeah, turn into the stress, because things are constantly being disrupted in technology and every economic industry. Things are constantly changing, and the more we try to keep things from changing, the more stress works against us. So the more I started seeking the stress and realizing where I can capitalize on making my own changes before external changes were to happen to me, then I was able to remain a little more calm. And so back to the example of just being in LA and this last one with the AV malfunctions, oftentimes I will imagine all those in advance. And can't say that I catch them all. I'm not my superpower is definitely not telepathic or anything where I can imagine the future.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But I definitely pretend, I talk to myself a lot, and I pretend scenarios happen before they happen. And some people, if you'd see me doing that in my home, you might think I'm a little nuts. But what that does for me is that actually allows me to imagine different scenarios. And not all of them happen, but enough of them do that I have kind of expected some of them to happen. And I've practiced.
I love that. It sounds like a preparatory for having fun with the inevitable, which is change and stress in life. And instead of being stressed from the stress, you're having fun playing with the stress and saying, okay. Well, and what I hear is that also you're allowing your creativity to sort of have a voice in the whole process by saying, okay, creativity. You come up with the different scenarios that could possibly happen here, and let's have fun role-playing what those things could be and how we would go about resolving them. And when they happen, we will have already gone through a dress rehearsal, and nobody will know it. And that's so awesome. That's so innovative. Talk about Mr. Innovator. That's innovative.
Hey, and I learned a lot of that from you, actually, because one of the first things I remembered from you was just not being attached to the outcome. That was a phrase you used a lot when I first met you.
Yeah,
and I remember
absolutely.
I struggled with that. So it's awkward to say that that's something I can do now, but I guess in part I learned a lot of that from hanging around people like you.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that recognition very much, and I'm honored to hear that, man. And boy, you sure do it well. Like you've excelled in that very quickly. So kudos. I mean, you've moved very quickly through not being attached to outcomes. I'm very impressed. That's the first I've heard that as far as where I've had influence. And yeah, you're a quick learner, then, man. That's all I got to say. Very fast learner.
I mean, I can't say that I'm mastered that by any means. It's just something that I've just allowed myself to pick up on. It seems that it's important to you. I see how you use it with your music in the moment, and that sounds a lot more scary, to be honest, than what I do when I have to adapt to things, because my stuff is pretty scripted, even though there's these little problems that come up. So it's anyway, you amaze me with that, and so I force myself to pay attention.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I do appreciate that a lot.
We keep scratching each other's backs here all day long.
Yeah, well, listen, we're for the audience, Rene and I are very close. We've been in a mastermind together for almost a year now, or just probably over a year. I think it just ended. So we're very close, and we do scratch each other's back. We're very supportive of one another, and that's what brothers do. You know what? That's what kinship is, and that's what support systems are, and that's what accountability partners in life and everything that happens in life is all about. And if you can get somebody like that in your life, it makes all the difference. And I'm grateful. I'm very fortunate to have somebody like Rene, and vice versa. And it's so great to hear that. Well, Rene, let me ask you this question. What's a current project that you're working on right now that kind of excites you? Speaking of creativity and sort of how your mind works, what's something that you might want to share with the audience that you're working on right now that excites you?
Well, I just finished something recently, so it's not one that I'm currently working on. I got a couple that I'm working on that I'm not as excited, because it's more laying the foundation. I'm trying to get a reel out for testimonials. And actually, I will be applying, hopefully tonight, to the National Association of Campus Activities regional conference coming up. And that's going to be in, I believe, October. Yeah, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I believe.
Very cool.
So that's kind of cool. But the one that I'm actually excited about that I just finished is a music video. And the reason I bring this one up is because it ties back to what we were just talking about a second ago about mishaps. So there's a video that I play my guitar for the first time in public. And that was by itself an exciting thing for me. But I had a feeling there was going to be a problem with trying to time the certain lyric that I had to a visual where there was going to be a star that was going to be cast behind me on the wall. And I had the AV guys, I talked to all of them, like, all right, at this point, we got to have this kind of lighting for the before drugs, and then during drugs, different kind of light, and then after drugs, different kind of light. Oh yeah, and by the way, when I'm singing the song, right at the time that I say the stars above, you got to make the star show up. So these guys are all freaking out because they've never done this much cueing before.
Yeah.
But they were really cool about it, but it was also this very stressful, like, okay, how many things are going to go wrong? It's not a matter of, is something going to go wrong? Everyone was kind of feeling like, how many things are going to go wrong? And still, are we going to be able to have a show? But the cool thing that happened was that there was the cue did not occur as had been planned. And I had practiced what would happen if that were to occur. And so I just stopped my singing, and I looked over at the guy who was running the AV. It was Steven. I was like, Steven, I just whispered, and I stopped the whole song. And then there's a little bit of laughter in the crowd, and I actually caught him on camera going and pressing that button to make the star show up, and he was like freaking out, but I caught him on camera freaking out. So that made it into the music video, and it was just a moment that was created and recorded for posterity. So I watched that over and over again. That's my favorite part of the video.
I love that. It sounds like an article that I just finished as far as the like the things we see on a theater, all that those scenes are scripted and the production's scripted, but it's the stuff that's not scripted. I call it the unknown.
Yeah. It's the unknown, and it's exciting. Oh, I don't hear you anymore. I wonder if we lost some connection there. Hey, David, I see that we're recording, but I cannot hear you, brother.
Because I feel like that's just the closest spot we have to our true self. And that's a pretty cool thing, man. I love it.
Hey, David, actually, I lost you for about a good 20 seconds there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes these things cut in and out a little bit. And, in the Wi-Fi world, can you hear me okay, Rene?
Yep, I can, and we're talking about malfunctions, so how appropriate.
Well, you know what? The universe never disappoints, and I see the signal go down, like my heart races a little bit. It's like, oh boy! And
you're the host, of course. You're going to stress over that. Heck yeah!
Yeah. Well, talk about a perfect example, no doubt about it. And So fortunately, I just had my lesson from you. I can roll with this, so I'm very fortunate there.
Look at that, and I should have just kept going instead of bringing it up. But see, I violated myself, and you actually picked up the torch there. So
well, hey, I was showing the audience what it's like to learn on the spot lessons and actually run with it immediately. So. That was good. Cool. That was good for everybody, right? That was good for everybody there.
Dude, yeah, I'm gonna want to listen to this pretty soon and see how that turned out.
Me too. I actually will too, and I think it'll be worth having the value of what that moment was meant to offer for the audience and for you and me. So I'm particularly loving it. Well, let me ask you this, Rene. I was going to call you Ryan. My son's name's Ryan, and boy, how many times in a day does that name come out of my mouth? Oh boy, if I were a numbers guy, I would still not be able to count it well. But anyway, let me ask you this, Rene, and this in close, it's going to be the last question we'll ask you here. What is one piece of wisdom from a lesson that you've learned you would be willing to share with our audience?
One piece of wisdom.
Yeah, from any time in your life, from the moment you were born to right now, if there's one thing that really you could surmise in a sentence or two about a lesson you've learned that would be really valuable for our audience to hear, and even myself, of course.
Yeah, and for me to hear and remind myself too. I'd say you knew the answer. You knew the answer long ago. And the world happened to you, that's all, Yeah. It's nothing, you're not discovering anything new. In my experience, it's just reminding and recovering what you threw away or what was taken from you or however that transpired. But since you were a kid, at that point, you had your imagination and you already knew what the answer was. So now are you going to go back to it, or are you going to find a way to use that and have that continue being your true self?
Yeah, absolutely. That true self that I thought I read recently. It's around, I think, around 7 that starts to fade away, and
is it 7?
And the conditionings of life start to take over, and that true self, that childlike self, dissolves into the backdrop and almost becomes a distant memory. And I know I certainly have my own story that I share on stage about that experience. And that childlike self, everybody, do what's necessary to tap back into that, to who that kid is. He's still around, or she's still around, and they really, really want to tell you something important, and just ask them, because they're waiting for you to listen. That's powerful, Rene. It's so powerful. And thank you so much for everything you shared today. It's so full of nuggets of wisdom and great value. So I know for our audience, that's going to be very rewarding.
And you can be responsible. You can be responsible as a kid. It doesn't mean that you have to choose either or. I mean, there's a reason we grow up. It's not to discard the responsibility to go back to being a kid. These two can coexist.
Powerful. They can coexist. Absolutely. There's no this way or that way. They can harmonize together and be just fine, and you'll be just fine. Yeah, but much more powerful. Well, this has just been amazing, Rene. And before we close out the show, let's remind listeners where they can go to find out more about you.
Thank you, David. Yep, it's going to be ReneRafael.com, and that's spelled R-E-N as in Nancy, E-R-A-F-A-E-L.com. DavidL.com.
Awesome. We'll go and check out everything that's going on over in Rene's creative world, and you'll be happy you did.
Music videos there too.
Cool. Well, the music video's there, so then you have to go over because based on what we've shared, you got to attach your mental vision of it with what his creativity is of it. So you'll love it. I promise you that. Well, thank you, Rene, for joining me and for being here. This has just been a blast and a true honor, and I'm just overjoyed to share in this space with you, brother. And I just want to acknowledge you once again for the powerful work that you're doing to help inspire people to stand up to fear and to be an example of somebody who can overcome what other people have said for you and chosen for you, and you can take your life back and you can decide on your own what you want to do and be moving forward in your life, regardless of age. So you're truly an inspiration, and personally, it's just it's just so exciting to have this opportunity to talk with you and to be a witness to all the wonderful and amazing work you're doing, brother. So keep that up, please.
Man. Yeah, likewise, brother, and thanks for being in my corner, man, as always.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Always will be. I want to, of course, thank the listeners as well. And until next time, be bold, stay true, and unveil your creative superpowers.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.
I get up and I show